Hello and welcome back to the Riviera International Centre here in Torquay. From the Devon Chamber of Commerce, we have been bringing you Digital Devon Live, which has been the series of live podcasts, interviews, insight and advice throughout the day. But of course, here at the Riviera Centre, we've been bringing you a whole range of keynote speakers, exhibitors galore. There has been so much amazing information, so much amazing people to meet, and lots to learn and see and do here. I would say it's fun for all the family. Maybe it is. So we've been bringing you, as we said, all our different interviews throughout the day, but this is probably the most important one because this is where our two leaders, the fantastic duo, I'm going to call you both, who are behind everything that has happened here, this whole experience that's been curated and put together. We have Helen Wylde-Archibald, who, of course, you're bound to know, is the CEO of the Devon Chamber of Commerce, and James Cater, who came on early on, who's Vice Chair of Exeter Chamber, but also he's a tech guru in his own right, aren't you, James?
Do you know, I've never been called a tech guru, Paul.
Well, you have now.
Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there?
I'd like us to reflect on the day, right? Talk about it, how it came about to exist, where it's going, what you think the future holds. So, Helen, let's start with you. You've not been long in post, really, and you've kind of made your mark, including revamping and turning another event into a brand new event. How did today come about?
So when I came in, we wanted to work out what our strategy was going to be for our members, and we basically, using all our research and information, settled on 5 pillars, and that included Global Devon, Digital Devon, it included skills, it included green innovation, and then what we need to do for local businesses across the 14 vertical sectors and 4 places that exist in Devon, because it's quite a fragmented county. And we decided that in terms of then starting that strategy and rolling it out when we launched it to the members on 22nd of January, that the first thing to do was Digital Devon, and the reason being is we could see it was the immediate need for this year, and we can see that in the environment it's a real point of change. For small businesses it's a big change, and it requires a systemic approach to everything involved, which is why we felt it was the place to start.
And James, this we were talking earlier how this is perhaps an organic evolution of an event that you ran and launched within Exeter called Exist. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that's now become Digital Devon?
Yeah, so Exist, which was the Exeter Initiative for Science and Technology, was a growing ecosystem of businesses that got together in Exeter 2 or 3 times a year to bring together global brands, national brands and local brands, really to share knowledge on key imperatives. As we brought together the Plymouth Chamber and the Exeter Chamber to become the new Devon Chamber, Helen and I thought it was right to then accelerate that ecosystem. And really so Exist was the foundation of which we are building a multi-year digital strategy on. And from the 300-ish people that have walked through the door today, to the 40-ish people who are exhibiting behind us, to the 12 people that have presented on the main stage today, it's a great next step, but it is just the first step to what will be growing and growing over multiple years.
And that whole concept of taking first steps and next step is very much a key element, because you've probably got a lot of visitors here who do not know how to take that first step in their business when it comes to embracing AI and indeed other tech. It might be called Digital Devon, and a lot of our conversations have been about AI, but it isn't all AI. We've got a communications lead, we've got a digital HR lead, we've got a recruitment specialist, we've got people that look at doing backups and infrastructure. There's so much you can learn here, Helen.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. So what we did was we built a Wayfinder, which is basically a map.
And I actually have. I've got one here. Now, I love a bit of print, I must say, actually. I'm going to hold it up for the camera. It's like very, very blue PT here. Can you see? Which camera am I showing to? Yeah, I'm showing it to that camera there. This is a Wayfinder. Tell us a bit about this then, Helen.
So basically, when you come to think about IT in a business, there are 10 things that you need to consider.
Yeah.
And 5 of those are what I call hard physical things, and 5 are soft organisational things. The 5 hard things are, how are you going to connect to the outside world? Connectivity. The second is, what systems in terms of hardware and software are you using? How old are they? Are they compliant and have you got proper warranty on them? And it's important you have. What's your cybersecurity setup? And particularly at the moment, that's a really big risk for all businesses. where are you storing your data and how are you keeping it and how are you making sure you're GDPR compliant? And finally, what applications are you using, including AI? So that effectively is the first 5 waypoints you need to think about. Now, on the other side, you need to consider some soft issues. If you introduce technologies like AI into your business, you need good governance, simple as. You need to reskill your team. You need to think about your culture and how they feel about it. You need to look at trust, both of your customers, your suppliers, and also your organisation itself. And you might need to consider how you're structuring, so who's responsible for all of this and who's going to manage it. So the Wayfinder takes you through these 10 points, and basically you click onto the QR code and it describes them in some detail. You can then select what vertical sector you're in market-wise, how big your company is, because a lot of this is about dimensioning it to the size of the company that you have. So if you're in creative industries, you will need more connectivity than somebody who's just doing a little bit of EPOS. So you might as well understand what that looks like and basically cut your cloth accordingly. It then gives you a list of what you need to do, what questions you need to ask in terms of making sure that you're in a good place, how much it's going to cost, and how long it'll take you to do those changes. And that's all available on our website through the QR codes. With the idea, it gives you a checklist to start from. Now, if you come out of that and you think, yeah, I knew all that, that's really good, because it means you're absolutely AI ready. And it means you can speed up what you're going to do to start to adopt more AI solutions, more digital solutions, and move forward. But when we talk about AI, this is a real misnomer, actually. I have been working in AI for nearly 15 years, okay, because connected and autonomous vehicles, they run on AI. Your fridge runs on AI, okay? So much runs on AI. It's just a technology, it's a tool. And what's great about some of the stands that we have today here in the exhibition is you can see that application coming through insurance, through marketing, through claims, through all sorts of things, to see how that verticalization of that band of technology is actually going to work through to those businesses, which improves all our lives and improves all the way our businesses work.
James, I'd like you to take your chamber hat off and put your tech consultant hat, entrepreneur and business owner's hat on, and tell us, from a business point of view, what events like this mean and what they bring to your table.
So I walked around the stands early this morning as people were setting up, and each of them explained to me in my language, because I knew some of them, what problems they were solving. They explained to me what a cyber attack meant, and they showed me one. Right? They explained to me what managing my information and my data to my business's advantage meant to me. And then they told me the legal protections I needed to have as I'm starting a new business, but in my language. So it's like a wealth of nations here, but everybody's talking the same language. And if you allow me, I'm going to put my chamber hat back on. It's actually bringing a lot of businesses together to speak in the language of collaboration. And that's what we've got sat behind us. We've got businesses promoting themselves, but they're talking to each other. They're talking to each other about AI, connectivity, cybersecurity, data, legal, manufacturing. They're all talking to each other. And if it wasn't for the Devon Chamber, none of us would be here today, and that collaboration would not have been happening. That's what benefits the region.
I love this personal experience that you've touched on. And Helen, when you get asked questions, where am I going with this? When you want to find out about something seemingly really complicated, like cybersecurity, you will Google it, you will go to find the YouTube videos, you'll ask AI. There is a high likelihood of the stuff you get back you won't understand. It's gobbledygook. Events like this, as James just says, gives you the opportunity to sit down one-to-one with a person, and you have to remember these relationships are real, and actually get shown it.
Yes, exactly. And so the simple things like the connectivity piece. So for instance, actually how many people know how many gig they've got going into their building? What they're paying for, are they getting? Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Is it, when you're going up or down, what does that signal look like, or is it symmetric? Have you got a lease line in there? What's your backup piece in terms of how that's going to work? Have you got all your servers working? Now, I would not expect most business people to know that, but if you are going
wouldn't even think about it.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
So if you're going to then start to build solutions and try and digitize your business, actually you do need to go back and check those things out. Perfect opportunity, have a conversation with Airband, who are sitting in the room here, and one or two of the others, and have the conversation and say, how do I work it out? Now actually, there is something on the internet where you can go and read exactly what's going on in terms of your gigabit capability, and also when it's going to arrive in the area. But why would anybody in a small business know that if they're not working in connectivity? So having the 10 points makes it just complete, that if you want to do this, you've checked as much as you possibly can with people in the room who can help you make those decisions.
James, what's the future hold then for this event? You mentioned in an earlier interview, there is a plan behind it. This isn't a one-off. I don't think the intention was ever to make it a one-off, but tell us about the Chamber and how you're working to make sure there is a roadmap, to make sure that this is literally a roadmap on paper, but I mean a roadmap in terms of time.
So I'm going to go back to the Wayfinder, because that will be the vehicle for the next step. Mm-hmm. Now, just like when you go to a theme park and there's a big map and there's a red dot, and that red dot says, Paul, you are here. But it gives you the ability to go on different journeys. And for the 300 plus organisations that attended the event today, they're all somewhere different on that map, and they all need to prioritise which directions they go in first. Mm-hmm. Okay, so from a Devon Chamber perspective, whether we run particular events on building AI, or protecting a business against cybersecurity, or figuring out for the legal market how they get to know their customer better, or whether it's just how we all step forward on our individual journeys, I think Digital Devon will repeat. I also think there will be sons and daughters of Digital Devon that will be specific focus areas for specific areas of interest, okay? So I've been saying all day today, this is day one of a multi-year Digital Devon activity. I'm sure there will be a map and a guide for the next steps that we will share over the years to come.
Now, in the room next to us, we're in the main exhibitors hall doing the podcast, which is why it's so noisy in here. But there is actually a presentation arena where like 200 or 300 people have been watching keynote speakers. It's that kind of, what's it called? It's the TED Talk style approach to actually talking about and giving really good takeaways, good learns. We don't really have, I mean, I may be wrong, but we don't really have those kind of events down here, quotation mark, close quotation mark. We've been missing out a bit. It's so good to see you actually making that stuff happen.
I think it's really important because we all learn differently. Okay, so some people need to have the chat with the individuals, maybe touch the equipment, have a go with it. Some people need to take it apart and put it back together, and I'm one of those. I break everything I touch because I like to see how it works. You know, some people are happily reading, but actually many of us like an interaction. We like to hear a speaker who makes us think differently about things, gets ideas, gives us a chunk of information that we can then play back slowly to ourselves about what's relevant to us and what isn't. So what we try to do between the workshops, the speakers and the zone here is provide every form of learning that people have so that we can touch them in different ways so they can work out what they need. And also, to James's point, not everyone needs the same thing, not everyone's on the same dot on the journey, so being able to start in the right place. I do think it's really important that we get speakers like Microsoft, like PwC, like AWS down here, like Cosmic, to talk to us about how this is planning out, because we want the businesses to come here and we want them to invest in the Southwest. And we've never been lucky enough in the past when there's been these big revolutions to be able to benefit, because when it was the Industrial Revolution, we didn't have enough people, right? So we couldn't play that game. This game we can play. We absolutely can. This is technology. We can be in this field. We've got great universities, we've got great clusters here in Torquay themselves. You know, there's every opportunity with the defence deal and all the other things we've got to be able to do that. So we need to move ourselves up as a county and present ourselves as somebody who does get the attraction from these type of speakers, who can get people to come and talk to us. So we're setting the ground and raising the bar about what Devon should be known for, because we are more than nice holidays and cream teas. We have so much more ability, and it's making sure all the sectors get the chances to shine. And this is a uniting technology around that, which allows us to actually participate on that platform.
Yeah. James, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think, real world experience, literally in the last 30 minutes, the speakers finished, we came off stage, there was a local charity that came up to PwC and said, can you help me? Mm-hmm. And the chief technical officer of PwC, who actually lives in Devon, said, yes, I'd love to. As we were coming off stage, there was an SME organisation that's been going for almost 100 years, a family company, came up to Microsoft and said, can you tell me more about what you've just been discussing that my business can experience? Yes, love to help you. That would not have happened in that hall without Digital Devon, and we just want to multiply those outcomes year on year.
This is an enabler, isn't it? This is going to enable people to get their done, to kind of get themselves properly embracing tech, to be a problem solver, a streamliner, an innovator. It's not necessarily about replacing people. It's about making people just do better stuff, good stuff.
Exactly. The whole idea is that, I don't think we should worry about, and Julie mentioned this, jobs will go because busy work is going to be replaced. But what we should say is, hurrah, look, that's great for all of us. Let's have a lifelong time of learning. Let's move our skills on and let's do something else. And I always think I'm not the sort of person who'd have done the same thing between 16 and 50 odd, quite frankly. I'd have been bored. I've moved around quite a few times and I think I've benefited from that, and I think most people would as well. It doesn't mean you can't become an expert in your field, it just means you need to evolve your skills. And if we can get people to actually embrace that, I think they'll be surprised what the benefits are. So the benefits are probably a more interesting job, if I dare say it, for some people, more free time. We could be heading for a 4-day week in this. Probably not in my working lifetime, but somebody else's. Wouldn't it be great?
Not in my job.
More flexibility about the way that you work, and the opportunity to evolve your own role in the way you want to go. And I think, we're so entrepreneurial in this county. I think it's a great opportunity. This is a technology which works for Devon and for Devon people.
The Wayfinder is really good because it looks at different areas. As Helen explained, it shows you kind of where you are in your digital journey, but it highlights different themes: connectivity, cybersecurity, systems and hardware, trust skills. If you excuse me, I'll go through them: data, culture, structure, governance, and AI. James, are there? I mean, we've been very upbeat and positive about the whole thing, but you must sometimes think, okay, there's a specific area where you may be a bit frustrated that perhaps there isn't a better degree of understanding, or there isn't the appropriate level of take-up, the pain points. What kind of do you think, I really wish we or they or the business sector really needs to get under the hood of and sort it out?
I don't see it as frustration. I see it as identifying the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. Because literally last night I discovered something that AI could do that I never thought it could do, and that was an opportunity. I then went and spent some time doing something I was enjoying doing rather than something that was mundane. Each of these businesses has opportunities to discover. There's probably been hundreds of those literally within the last 6 or 7 hours today.
Yeah.
Maybe Digital Devon becomes the Silicon Peninsula. That's where we're going. And actually, many things were invented in the Southwest. Many more things from organisations that are collaborating today will create new things and actually enhance the work experience rather than reduce it.
And Helen, there's we often speak about governance, cultural changes, the ethical deployment and utilisation of tech in all its varied forms, not just the AIs, but all tech everywhere. It does seem sometimes that government, those that write the legislation, we've got a roadmap here, Wayfinder. I mean, they've lost their way. They're not even anywhere on this map. But it's like, it seems to me, it's the Chamber's kind of like picking up the slack a lot, isn't it, with regards to engaging with businesses and telling the powers that be what they need to do in terms of good governance and good legislation and both freedoms and restrictions.
So it's not unusual, actually. So because I spent
It's always been the way.
It's always been this way. So I've worked in new technology for my entire career, and when we started off with mobile phones, with Ofcom, there were things in the structures of the deals that Ofcom didn't know about, and we didn't know about. So text was a complete surprise to all of us, okay? So we went from analog to digital and suddenly discovered we could do it. Couldn't charge for it. It took us ages to work out how to get a bill on that one, and that was just discovered by accident. We're connecting autonomous vehicles. We could have had them running 10, 15 years ago on the roads, but we didn't build in human factors. So when you came up to a corner, you took it too sharp and you felt car sick. So what I would say is I think actually there is a period of settlement in any development of new technology where you find out what it might be able to do, and it's never what it says on the tin. At that point, you can then advise and assist the regulators to really shape up the regulation into something which is common sense. So there's a piece of regulation coming very shortly, which basically outlines, it's in August this year, the European AI Act. It outlines the risk triangle for AI. And I think this is one of the most important pieces of legislation for businesses, because what it says, and to government so they can legislate on it, what is banned? So at the moment, we don't know what's banned, okay? So
No.
quite frankly, as long as you don't break any
We
existing
barely
rule.
know what's allowed.
Exactly. So you can more or less do what you want,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Unless there's a law somewhere else with precedence. Well, that's pretty awful if you're trying to design a product or service you want to sell, okay? So we're going to know what's in the top triangle is banned. We're going to know what's labelled as high risk. Now, that means we can insure. Now, up to now, the insurance companies have quite rightly been going, right, what the hell do we do here? We can do cyber, we get that, what do we do? But in that top band, actually, is most of the banks, okay? So they are all high risk. It is actually some of the more professional services are seen as high risk. So some of the things we thought might happen in terms of legal, etc., moving on to AI, not without a lot of regulation is that going to happen. And also all medical is in there as well, which also it should be, quite frankly. And then everything else, you can more or less do what you want. So it's got a sort of 4 bands in terms of how that looks. That's transformational. Now we can help the government turn that into law. We can follow the Europeans to make sure that we keep aligned with them. They're still our biggest trading partner. And that will give businesses the security and structure. I always think it's like, aiming for the goal on the match. You need to know where stanchions are before you hit it down the goal. And that will give structure and shape so we know where we can go, when we're offside, when we're in the net. And it's those sort of things, I think, which add real value. And we need to be ready for that conversation. I mean, this is the next thing we'll probably talk about is all the regulation which is coming this year. And that should actually alleviate a load of pressure and also help the government to make up their mind what they could do in terms of regulation.
And James, when you're running a business and you wanted to implement and integrate technology, these question marks over potential changes in legislation will hold you back because you don't know whether you're going to invest in that software suite or making that provider part of your day-to-day workflow if you don't know whether that provider is going to be restricted somehow or there's going to be a legislative change not so far down the road which will prohibit your use of that technology in that form. There's so many question marks that we still don't really know how to utilize it.
I'm a great believer in going to people you know, going to people you trust, and going to people that you know have got a reputation. What I've learned as being part of the chamber structure for the last 3 or 4 years is that there's a known community of trust. And if I need to go in to take legal advice or technology advice or whatever advice, there's 40 friends behind us here, right, who know their stuff, and they're only here because they do a great job for their customers. So I'm actually building a business myself at the moment, and a number of my partners and suppliers sat behind us because I go to people that I know, go to people that I hear do a great job, and that's what's great about the chamber. It's a very inclusive ecosystem. It brings in great organisations, and it's a great place to go for businesses.
So you kind of touched on it, but let's talk about the future then. What do you think the future holds for technology? That's a big question. And you don't need to go any further than, I asked this earlier, I said, I have 5, you were actually on it. I have 5 years written down. I'm thinking that's an impossible answer. What do you feel about the future?
So I feel very positive because I think you have to own it. Okay, so if you want to be a passenger, I think it would be more scary. I think where we are, we've got one, from my perspective academically, we've got a really interesting circumstance because we need to have some ethical debates. And ethical debates about what is acceptable and wasn't in technology, but also things like, is a 4-day working week acceptable? Are we actually now in a stage where we should be thinking within the next generation for educating for leisure? We have to accept that things like mortgages probably are not possible in the current format because people will work more for themselves and be more independent. So how does that work? I think for the younger generation, retirement is probably not right, so they need to get themselves together with a serious Thailand fund and take regular breaks, and so they go off every 5 years, have so many months off, and we need to accommodate that in the workforce.
You're talking about a massive sociological change.
I am, and actually I think we need to embrace it because actually, isn't it more healthy, for instance, if you decided to have children, that you could actually take a few years off at the point when they need you? It may not be, straight away, but at some point they may need you. Isn't it healthy that you take a year off and go and see something in the world that you thought you'd never see? Isn't it healthy that we actually start to award people for actually having credit systems maybe for out of work time where they go and visit people who are elderly or on their own, and the care system changes as a result of it and people are less isolated? So I think the bigger picture with technology is probably in 10 to 30 years is probably we are seeing the end of capitalism. Let's hope to goodness somewhere in here we've got cures for cancer, but we've also got cures for some things which are going on in the environment. This could be a really exciting new world. And no, we won't get to space without AI. So effectively, within 30, 40 years, we could be in a very different generation. Statistically, the first child who's going to live to 210 has already been born somewhere in Devon. So you cannot talk about a 40-year cycle of working. You can't talk about mortgages. You can't talk about one education, which lost 18. You can't do any of those things because their life is going to be so different to ours. So, let's just embrace it and make sure that we leave really solid foundations for them and they get the best life chances, and we enjoy potentially a better life-work balance and more interesting jobs in the future.
James, what are your thoughts on this? These are some quite visionary points, and you're kind of thinking, oh my word, are we about to enter some kind? I know, Helen. I know you're a sci-fi geek, a bit like me.
Yeah, I am.
Are we about to enter the Star Trek era? Is this? What do you think? And you can disagree with some.
I'm a big fan of what Douglas Adams did write and what he actually didn't write, and whether Earth is just a big computer and the answer is 42. I enjoy continually trying to figure out what the question is, and that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very, very good. Okay, so very final thoughts. Just to sum up today, how have you felt about Digital Devon?
It's been inspirational. I'm so grateful that everybody who's come, everyone who's participated, our speakers, our exhibitors, our workshop owners. We are so lucky here. We've got such a lovely business community, and it's just been a great experience. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, so I'm very grateful to everybody.
James?
I think two things really. The whole team has done a tremendous job. These things are not easy. There are bumps in the road, but the collaboration, the engagement, and all that conversation that we can hear in the background means it's worth it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Simple as that. It's worth it.
Fantastic. So Digital Devon has been brought to you by the Devon Chamber of Commerce. You can, of course, find out about everything the Devon Chamber does by visiting devonchamber.co.uk, where you'll also be able to access the Wayfinder, download your copy. But, of course, if you send it a stamped addressed envelope, we might even send you one back in the post. Thank you to everyone, my team here at Fresh Air Studios, who worked hard to build our live podcast set. And, of course, to the team at the Devon Chamber and all the agencies that go towards making this all happen. You've got the guys at PV Media, you've got the guys at One Voice Media, you got James and your motley crew as well, and obviously Helen and all the staff. There are lots of people, as James said, that go to make events like this possible, and also work for the business community in the Southwest every single day, because that's what the Devon Chamber of Commerce does. If you'd like to find out about membership, visit us online.